Hello, first I would like to say thank you for visiting my channel. So for today we are going to discuss the USNCO questions for year 2021 for numbers 7 until 12. If you want to look at the video explanation for the previous part, you can find my previous video. Okay, so first let's start from question number 7. Okay. So when substances are separated by frictional distillation, which property is least typical of the substance that distills first? So we have to find the keyword here. The keyword is least typical of substance that comes out first. Least typical. So this means that the substance would have a high boiling point. So this means option D is wrong. If a substance has a high boiling point, this means that the substance has a low vapor pressure. So this makes option C wrong as well. And then let's continue. So vapor pressure becomes low because of the interaction forces between molecules are strong. So this means option B is also wrong. And then what makes a strong interaction force? Well, as you know, there are several kinds of interaction force, and then the strongest interaction force is hydrogen bond. So if a substance has a hydrogen bond, usually the vapor pressure will be the lowest, which means that the boiling point is the highest. So other possibility is if the molecules are polar, and then well, it can also have the high molar mass. Yeah, so in this case the answer is A. So let's continue to question 8. Which element is most abundant by mass in the Earth's crust? If you take a look at the Google, you can find the answer immediately, but yeah, let's learn about history a little bit. So the history of Earth begins 4.6 billion years ago. At that time, the surface temperature of Earth was very hot, that elements can only be found in the form of plasma. And then 4.5 billion years ago, the temperature got cold a little bit, so the surface temperature is 200 degrees until 700 degrees of Celsius. So at that time, the molten metal oxide, for example like Fe2O3, SiO2 and so on, was formed. And then around 4.4 billion years ago, the temperature was approximately 120 degrees to 400 degrees of Celsius. So at that time, water were still in the vapor form. And then the composition of the atmosphere, well, there are lots of gases there: ammonia, carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide, water vapor, methane, sulfur dioxide, and so on. And then around 4.2 billion years ago, the Earth's surface temperature was between 80 until 150 degrees of Celsius. So as you can see here, the temperature is lower than 100 degrees of Celsius. It means that water would condense. So rain started to fall. Okay. And then, so since rain could happen during night, so gases in the atmosphere will react with water and then dissolve into water body. So these are some examples. For example, carbon dioxide reacts with water to form carbonic acid, and then this is sulfur trioxide reacts with water to form sulfuric acid, and then this is nitrogen monoxide reacts with water to form nitric acid, and so on. And then furthermore, the acid will react to form minerals. So these are some examples. So it produces calcium carbonate and calcium sulfate, and then iron 3 carbonate, and so on. So from this example, it is clear that the major composition of the Earth crust is oxygen. So if you are talking about Earth crust, the major composition is oxygen. But if you are talking about the atmosphere, then the major composition is obviously nitrogen. So let's continue to question number 9. Which gas has the highest molar solubility in water at 25 degrees and 1 atm? So let's see. If the gas has the highest molar solubility in water, then there are several criteria that should be met. The first is more interaction force means higher solubility. And then the second criteria is if the gas can react with water. So as a consequence, this will make higher solubility. So let's evaluate them one by one. But before that, it is important to know that water molecules interact each other using hydrogen bond. Yeah, of course there are several other kinds of force, but yeah, hydrogen bond is the strongest interaction force. So let's see from oxygen. As you can see here, oxygen made up from the same atoms of element. So this makes the molecule non-polar. And then oxygen also doesn't react with water. So this makes the solubility of oxygen gas is the lowest. Well, let's continue to carbon dioxide. So carbon dioxide, the shape of molecule is linear. So this means that carbon dioxide is non-polar molecule. But originally the bonds are polar. But because the shape is linear, then they are cancelling each other, so it becomes non-polar molecule. So let's see. Carbon dioxide can react slightly with water. So this is the reaction. Water and carbon dioxide produces carbonic acid. And then carbonic acid can dissociate into H plus and CO3 2-. So the solubility of carbon dioxide is better than oxygen. So let's continue with hydrogen sulfide. So hydrogen sulfide, if you can draw the shape is V-shape or bent. So this means hydrogen sulfide is polar molecule. And then it can form partial hydrogen bond with water molecule, as you can see here. So the hydrogen atom from the hydrogen sulfide can form hydrogen bond, but this one, the sulfur atom can only interact with dipole-dipole interaction. So the strength of force is not as strong as hydrogen bond, so that's why it is called partial hydrogen bond. Hydrogen sulfide can also react with water, so the reaction is like this. So in conclusion, hydrogen sulfide has higher solubility compared to carbon dioxide. And then the last is ammonia or NH3. Well, if you notice that ammonia is polar molecule, and then it can interact with water molecule using hydrogen bond. Why? Because the N nitrogen is connected with a hydrogen atom, so they can form hydrogen bond with water molecule as well. So this is just an illustration of hydrogen bond that can be formed between water molecule and ammonia molecule. And then ammonia also reacts with water. Well, so the compound that has the gas that has the highest solubility in water is ammonia. So the answer is B. Well, next let's go to question 10. Which compound is colorless? This one is pretty tricky because all of the compounds here are ionic compound. So ionic compound has two components basically. So they have cation and anion. To be colorless liquid or colorless solution, of course, both of the components, in this case cation and anion, should be colorless. So let's see each of them one by one. So there are some rules here. So first, cation from group 1 and group 2 are colorless. So this means Na+, Rb2+, and Ba2+ are colorless. So this makes, I think, answers B. Okay, so this means here CrAsO4 is disqualified. Well, because the cation is not from group 1 or group 2. And then next is, if the orbital of the central atom of the anion is half full or fully occupied, then the anion will be colorless. But this is pretty tricky. Why? Because CrO4 2- and MnO4- have D3s hybridization. So basically the orbital is fully occupied, but still they have color due to electron transfer. It is kinda hard to explain about this, but while IO4- it has sp3 hybridization, and then the orbital are also fully occupied, and then there is no electron transfer. So it means that the anion has no color, and then the cation also has no color. So this is the answer. So let's continue to question 11. Chlorine gas is bubbled into colorless aqueous solution of sodium iodide. which is the best description of what takes place. So let's see. Chlorine gas is bubbled into solution containing sodium iodide. And then what will happen? Well, basically this is the reaction. So we need to decide whether there will be a reaction or not. And then if a reaction takes place, what will be the reaction? And then is there any kind of reaction or not? Well, let's see. So first, group 7 elements will take one electron to complete octet rules. I think you already know about this, because to reach stability, the elements will, or not the elements, the atoms will try to have outermost shell that contain 8 electrons. Here are members of group 7 elements, well, almost all members. And then as the elements go down, the radius increases. Why? I think you already know the reason, because it has more shell. So as radius increases, the ability to catch electron decreases. This is related to the, the force, electrostatic force. So the conclusion is reactivity decreases from up to bottom, or the opposite, reactivity increases from bottom to top. So this means chlorine is more reactive compared to bromine. Why bromine? It should be iodine. Oh, I'm sorry. So chlorine is more reactive than iodine. Okay, let's see. So the reaction will take place. So this is the reaction. So the reaction will produce I2. So I2, the color is brown. However, if the amount of the chlorine is excessive, so the chlorine can react with iodine. So there are several reactions that can happen between iodine and chlorine. So these are the products. So they have different colors: reddish brown, yellow, bright, colorless. Well, from this information you can say that the answer is D, because, well, the products is having brown or yellow colors, something like that. So let's continue to question 12. A student determines the number of moles of water in a hydrated metal oxide by weighing a clean, dry crucible and lid while the crucible is empty, and then reweighing the crucible and lid with a sample of the hydrate, and then heating the crucible and lid with a Bunsen burner, and then measure the weight of the crucible and lid with the sample after cooling the sample to room temperature. So which error will result in too high a value for the amount of water hydration? So option A, the heating is conducted only once instead of 3 times recommended by the procedure. So basically, what is the purpose of having 3 times of heating? So the purpose of heating the sample 3 times is to see the consistency of mass. So if the mass no longer changes, it means that it has reached the final condition. Anyhow, as long as the sample is heated long enough, it should be fine. But if the heating is not long enough, then the result obtained will be smaller than the actual value. So this means option A is wrong. Let's continue to option B. Here's option B. The lid is left off the crucible when it is weighed with the hydrated oxide. So, well, if the student forgot to put the lid, it means that, well, the mass of the lid may be larger than the mass of escaping vapor. So there's a chance, there's a probability that the initial mass is smaller than the final mass, which means that the calculated value of mole of water can show a negative result, which is obviously wrong. And then option C, the metal oxide reacts partially with oxygen in the air, forming a compound in a higher oxidation state. Well, if this is the case, then the missing mass of water may be replaced by the mass of oxygen that turns into oxide ion. I mean that, like during the heating, some of the water vapor will escape from the container, right? But if it reacts with oxygen to form oxide with higher oxidation state, it means that there will be addition of mass from oxygen as well. So the result, the decrease of mass will be smaller than the mass of the escaping water vapor, which means that the calculated value of mole of water will be smaller than the actual value. Well, by judging from here, obviously the answer will be D. But what is option D? So in option D, some of the heated oxide is spilled from the crucible before it can be weighed. So this is talking about the final value of mass after the heating. Well, if the sample is spilled, so of course the final mass will be smaller than the actual mass. So the calculated mass of water that's missing will be larger than the actual value. That makes the calculated value of mole of water will become greater than it should be. So the answer is D. So that's the explanation for number 7 until 12. So thank you very much and see you next time.